Good afternoon. And welcome to, or welcome back to, for some of you, Old Town High School. My name is Scott Gordon, I'm the principal, and I'm so grateful to see you all here and back to induct the class of 2022 under our Old Town High School Athletic Hall of Fame. This class has been in the huddle or waiting for the next call to be inducted. We really wanted to do this in a way where we didn't have to have people, the inductees or the audience members, in mask. So we've been waiting for the right time, and today, thankfully, is the right time. So really excited to see you all here and see the inductees who could make it today here with us. And I'm really looking forward to some of the stories that I think are going to emerge from this afternoon's little get-together. I think there are some stories from days gone by that we're all going to laugh and enjoy and hearing. One of the things I've always enjoyed about doing this, and I think Clem will echo this when he talks to you in a few minutes, is just seeing people get reacquainted, see the laughter, see the smiles, see the hugs, people who haven't seen each other in a long time. That's the joy I get from this, in addition to honoring the wonderful student athletes that we bring back, to just say thank you and to hear about what they're doing now and what they've done since they left Old Town High School. So without further ado, I'm gonna kick it over to the MC of today's event and future Old Town High School Athletic Hall of Famer, Mr. Clem Wilbury.
Thank you, Scott. Yes, it has been 2 years. Seems like it's been longer than that. And it is great to get back here and be able to recognize some of our great student athletes and coaches that have done some great things here at Old Town High School. And to be able to recognize them and make them really a permanent part of the high school and the legacy that they had while they were here. We're going to start with our first inductee, Jim Walsh, who was a football coach, baseball coach. He was social studies teacher here at the high school. As a football coach, 10 seasons, walking the sidelines for the football program from 1983 to 1992. In those 10 seasons, he led the team to 5 conference championship appearances. In 1991, he coached Old Town to a 6-0 win over Orono on a mud-covered field to win the LTC championship. A game that still is considered one of the greatest in LTC history. His teams only suffered 1 losing season while he was the head coach and finished in the top 3 of the conference standings in all but 3 seasons. And he was also named LTC Coach of the Year and selected as a coach in the prestigious Main Shrine Lobster Bowl. During his time here at Old Town, he coached 28 all-LTC players, which kind of tells you why they had the success they did. He was also a very creative coach. We were reminiscing a little bit ago. I could literally write a book. With some of the things. Football is a very emotional sport. Coaches do what they can to try to motivate, inspire. Coach Walsh is one of the most creative that I've come across. He was here coaching when I was a student, kind of working behind the scenes. And he always tried to do something to get his team fired up for the game. And I'll just share one of those stories. We were playing here at Victory Field against Stearns. The year before, they beat us like 56-0. And I think 8 on him for the entire year, losing to Stearns in our Greenlaw. So here comes Stearns a year later, probably a better team than Old Town was. And so the pregame routine was the team went up to the field, they did their warm-ups and everything to get ready for the game. Then they would come back to the gym. Coach Walsh would give his pregame speech, and then they would line up outside in the parking lot behind the band, who would then march them up to the field. So the team's up there, I'm in the equipment room, and Coach Walsh comes in. This will date us because everything back then was on VHS tapes, all the game films. So he comes in with a VHS tape, and he says, I need you to label this Stearns Old Town 56-0. And he's like, if you could somehow make it so it will fall apart easy, that would be great. So, okay. So the team comes up from warm-ups, and Coach Walsh meets them in the parking lot and does not allow them to go into the gym for the normal pregame routine. So they are lined up, and Coach Walsh goes off, is yelling and screaming about losing to Stearns 56-0. It has kept them up at nights for a whole year. We were embarrassed. We're not going to let this happen again. And this went on for like 5, closing in on 10 minutes. And he's got that tape in his hand and tells them how many times he's watched that tape through the course of the year, turns around and throws it up against the building, and it shatters in a million pieces. Mostly because we doctored it, so we would do that. And he had every player on that team with tears coming down their face. And I'm thinking, well, this is going to be good or not good. The band standing there waiting like, okay, what do we do now? And eventually they led the team up there, and it served the purpose because they went out and beat what was really a better Stearns team by 3 touchdowns that day. So that's one of many stories. He was very good at that stuff. Some things that would still work today, some things that would not still work today, which is why he doesn't want me to write the book. But we are so happy to have him here today as the newest member of the Old Town Hall of Fame. Please welcome Jim Walsh.
He was kind to me. He has more dirt on me than any person on the planet Earth. We worked together very closely. The one I thought he was going to say was we played at Dover Foxcroft, and it was 2 very good football teams, and we were getting smoked at halftime, and they put us in a classroom, and when I walked in, every single head, 50 kids, was down like this, helmets on the desk. And typically I don't think before I act, so I just went, boom! The helmets jumped up, the heads popped up. I gave a halftime speech, we came out and scored. We still lost the game, but we didn't embarrass ourselves. And walking out to the field, I said to Clem, I said, I think I broke my hand. He says, yep, I broke my hand in 2 places. So I came in with a cast and an L for a loss that Monday. I want to thank you to the selection committee. I'm very appreciative, honored, flattered, and humbled by this selection. I want to congratulate past inductees. I know there are several that are here, and the other honorees and their families and friends. Our success in football was pretty simple. It was based on 4 components, if you will. We had administrative support, the best administration I've ever worked with, and I've been in this business a long time. Don Sturgeon, Lionel Bishop, and the late great Bob Leahy. Tremendous support from the administration. Quality coaching staff. I see a few familiar faces here. Most of you probably don't know these people. Gary Spencer, Chris Kempton, and Randy Hutchins. So 3 of the 4 of us ended up being head coaches. We just had a tremendous staff. The parents that we had. Parents were there. Anything that we wanted for the kids, they were there. They provided food for the buses, jackets for the coaches. What can we do to support the program? We had tremendous support from the community. And most importantly, we had outstanding student athletes. I was trying to think of some adjectives to describe the kids that I was fortunate to coach. Dedicated, very physical, very intense, confident, and very team-oriented. I remember one halftime we were down maybe 10 points to a team, and I was having one of my typical meltdowns, and a couple of the kids came over and said, Coach, relax, we got this. And that's the kind of kids that we had. They went from fall sports to hockey and basketball to track and baseball, and they had that confidence, that teamwork. I would also like to acknowledge, and this isn't because you popped in, Rod, but I'd also like to acknowledge some of the other outstanding coaches that I had the privilege to work with here at the high school. Dave Plock, Bill Lighthizer, Rod White, Marty Clark, to name a few. We had tremendous coaches here at the same time. I learned a lot from them. In a teaching and coaching career, it horrifies me when I did the math, that spanned 50 years. I'm retiring July 1st. My time at Old Town High School stands apart from all the other 10 schools that I had the pleasure to work at. The absolute best experience ever. And I'll throw a couple quick stories at you. Robbie Dana, Barry Dana, Robbie Dana, my first year coaching, and we were counting on Robbie, and he wasn't there for the first practice. And then we had a second practice because it was preseason. And all of a sudden, I don't know anything about motorcycles, but it's the biggest motorcycle I ever saw. It comes roaring up the track, up the field, right to the middle of our practice, and Robbie Dana's on it. Coach, I'm here, I'm ready to go. Okay, Rob, whatever you want. And he showed up, he ended up being an all-state linebacker, and if I was smart as a coach, it was my first year coaching, he would have carried the ball 20 times every day. He would have been an all-state running back as well. I was telling Clem, we played a Bucksport, and I think it was a playoff game, and it was muddy and awful. TJ Smart was our quarterback. We were blessed to have great quarterbacks. Not necessarily 6'4", 220 quarterbacks, but great leaders, very smart kids. We score, and all we need to do is kick an extra point to win. We get a delay of game penalty. And I'm like, what are we doing out there? Well, there was a big puddle right where the ball was going to be placed for the extra point. So TJ gets in the huddle and goes, we're taking a penalty, we're moving it back 5 yards. And any of you that were around and ever saw any of our games, we were fortunate. We had some exchange students that Paul Bouchard ran down to the football field. It was like son of flubber when they kicked it, 50 yards. So the extra point went, thanks to TJ being perceptive. I don't know if this was the same Stearns game, but Gary Spencer was up in the booth calling the plays, 4th and 1, and we're trying to, move the ball down and score. Typically, you just give it to the back and hope that you can get a yard. He calls a halfback pass. And I'm like, oh my God. Score a touchdown, we beat Stearns. Coaches, players, on top of things, making decisions. I will tell you Orono Old Town, because I bump into people that still talk about that game. Old Town 10-0, Orono 10-0, televised, 6,000 fans. Any of you that were around, and Clem will verify this, people started coming in at 3, 4 in the afternoon. We take the opening kickoff, march down the field, score. It's going to be a great day. It's the last time we saw the end zone until the end of the game. It was 52-14, we lost. So we win a couple of playoff games, they win a couple of playoff games. There's a rematch. So I've got 55 football players up in my room. Clem, get out of here. Coaches, get out of here. I want to talk to them. We're not watching the film. We're not leaving this room until you guys tell me 2 or 3 reasons why we should even play this game. I don't want to be embarrassed again. So like I'm looking out at the team. Crickets. Nobody says anything. I'm going, oh geez, this is going to be a long night. Finally, one kid raises his hand. He goes, can't be as bad as the last game. 1. Another kid raises his hand. Coach, you said we're putting in a new defense. 2. And by the end, I don't want to say by the end of the meeting, but we never watched the film. It was torturous to watch it. They had a little bit of confidence. We came in, and when we had the rematch, we pounded them 6-0. We got 1 touchdown. We earned it. We played great defense, but it was a great life lesson for our players. When you get knocked on your butt, you can do 1 of 2 things. You can sit there and cry, dust yourself off, and get back up. So that was a very important moment, I think, for everybody associated with our team. Once again, my sincere thanks, and I appreciate this honor.
Thank you. And I said I was only going to tell one story, but Scott just texted me and said, you didn't tell the Orono story. This was Orono, Old Town, always a big game. This was before we even had lights, so we're playing on Saturdays. And the game was going to be here. Friday morning, students driving into school, and hanging on the back of the bleachers were these big white bed sheets with maroon paint, basically describing how Orono was going to do some things to Old Town that wasn't going to be pretty, and they were going to get the win. And then we discovered that they not only did that, but they took their maroon and white paint and they painted all over the field and the bleachers. And right there at the middle of the 50-yard line, we have kids here. So I'll just say there was like some parts of the human anatomy, the male human anatomy, which Bob Leahy then had me take some white paint and turn that into an interlocking OT. Only to come to find out later, Coach Walsh, not him, but his assistants had done all that the night before to make it look like Orono did it. And once again it worked because we went out and pounded Orono. So sometimes you have to be creative. Our next inductee is Chad Hayes. Chad played basketball and football here at Old Town High School. He was one of these players that you would consider kind of a late bloomer, big, tall kid, pretty athletic, and just got better as his high school career went on. Basketball was a good player, and in football he really took off, had hands like the size of tennis rackets. So they made him a tight end, and he was so tall that you could just lob the ball up to him and he would always catch it. Obviously the University of Maine coaches saw that and said, hey, they got something there. So he went on to play after Old Town at the University of Maine, and was, and to this day, is still one of the best tight ends that they've had in school history. Finished his season, senior season by being named an All-American. Then went on to play parts of 4 seasons in the NFL with the Titans, the Chargers, the Chiefs, and the Bengals. He also played in NFL Europe for 2 teams. He played for the Frankfurt Galaxy, which was his last stop, and played in World Bowl 12. And played for the Berlin Thunder as well, where he caught lots of passes for both of those teams, and is the only Maine native to ever play in NFL Europe. So nice little mark on his cap there as well. Chad is unable to be with us here today because of a prior commitment, but did, I know, communicate with Principal Scott Gordon last night about how humbled he is, and the fact that all these years later we would still remember him in this manner, and induct him into our Hall of Fame. So we'll give a round of applause for Chad Davis. And now for the awkward moment of the day, I will invite up my brother Chad.
Good afternoon. I'd like to say I prepared a speech, but last minute, so I did not. But how do I really don't need to prepare a speech to introduce the next inductee, who's my brother, Clem. I've known him all my life. And so it's pretty easy to brag and talk about him and all of the things that he's done for this community, but not only this community, but many other communities throughout the state in the sports arena. You know, we a lot of times we recognize people in the Hall of Fame for a special achievement, a record. You know, maybe it's your coaching record, maybe it's a setting school records and things like that, but a lot of times we don't recognize the people who kind of are the glue that hold a lot of the things together. And Clem's always been in love with sports, and it really doesn't matter what sport it is, and he can talk about any sport for forever. As a high school student, he knew he wanted to get back and get more into it, so he ended up going to take a class at the University of Maine while he was still in school with the late Wes Jordan, who was athletic trainer at the University of Maine. Ended up becoming a student athletic trainer. Well, that was before I was in high school, and I could tell you right now that I didn't even know what an athletic trainer was. And I don't even think our schools in Maine knew or even accepted athletic trainers at that point. So I really look at Clem as somebody who blazed the path for athletic trainers, and now we can't go to a school without seeing an athletic trainer on the sideline. He supported the football teams, the hockey teams, always looked up to Coach Walsh, Coach Fadrigan with the hockey team. And there wasn't a kid in this school that he wouldn't take care of. And that transitioned not only while he was in school as a student, but he continued that journey in taking care of people and our students after he graduated high school. So, you know, I think we ended up with a training room down right next to the coach's office, right across from the coach's office because of Clem, and they brought in these beds, and he was taping ankles, and he'd be down here during his study halls, taking care of kids, making sure they got whirlpools and things like that. But it goes beyond that. He got into broadcasting after high school. Supported the school here with doing a lot of announcing. He announced games all over the state. He became kind of a voice of the radio for the University of Maine with basketball. Any sport that they needed, he and usually Dale Duff, you could find them side by side, bantering, and sometimes I wondered if they even liked each other. But they still have coffee and breakfast every so often, so that's always good to see. But he's really kind of been an icon here at Old Town. He's recognized in the street, he's recognized all over the state, and since I started coaching basketball for varsity teams, everybody would come up and say, "Hey, do you know Clem LeBrie?" I'm like, "I don't know, do you like him?" And they, "Oh yeah, no, he was so good, and where did he go?" And I tell them where he's gone and the things that he's accomplished now beyond being an announcer. And I can never stop talking about him. Sometimes the coach is like, "Okay, yeah, have a good day," and they'll walk away. But yeah, the one thing that they always said is he was probably one of the most respected reporters, game announcers that they've ever came in contact with, because they knew what they said would be exactly what translated. So it has a lot to do with his integrity and his profession and how he treats everybody. So I can't be more proud of my brother and this honor that he's receiving. I know it's tough for him to take because he puts a lot of this all together. So I'm sure when he saw his name get nominated, he was like, "Oh, geez." But you know what, Clem? Accept it. You deserve it, and enjoy the moment.
Thank you. Yes. And thank you to Chad, who is the Brewer varsity basketball coach and has to bolt out of here in a minute because they have to go to Mount Blue for games tonight. So I thank him for taking time. It is a little bit awkward because when you look here and you see the great athletes and coaches and everything they did on the fields and those who have come in the 8 classes before us, that's not me by any stretch. Not the athlete, but what we do share in common is a passion for sports. For a lot of our inductees over the years, whether it be coaching or competing, they did that at a top level. I was a little bit more behind the scenes because I was passionate about sports and wanted to do what I could in and around sports. I was very lucky, as Coach Walsh mentioned, the administration, that's all the administration that was here when I was. I was lucky to have Bob Leahy as an athletic director who supported just about anything that we wanted to do. When I said, "Hey, let's do some more things with sports medicine," he was like, "Yeah, let's do it." And we didn't have a place to do it. We didn't really have the equipment to do it. But I do remember he was at a conference and coming back, he's like, "Hey, I just found an auction. They've got 2 exam tables. We're loading them up and we're taking them back." And so that was kind of the start of the training room and being able to help our athletes, not just with good coaching and everything, but trying to take care of them as well so they could, compete at the top of their level. We also decided one day, we said, "Hey, let's try to see if we can spice up basketball games by having a PA announcer through the whole game." Most schools, if they were doing anything, they would announce the starting lineups and that was it. And I said, "Let's have somebody do the whole game." And he's like, "Okay, you're it." And so we did that. And much to the chagrin sometimes of Don Sturgeon, who was the principal, I remember him at halftime one game. I would get very excited when an Old Town player scored a basket. My voice would go up, my excitement level would go up, and then on the other end of the floor is Orondo basket by John Smith. And he came over and he's like, "Hey, we gotta be fair, you gotta do it for both." And I'm like, that's not what our fans wanna hear. So I complied for half, and then we went back doing it my way the rest of the time. But now you see those, at basketball games when you go around the state, most places have that. And I was lucky because a lot of athletic directors might have said, "No, we're not going to do that." But Bob Leahy was always for doing new things, and I was lucky. He really played a big part in my life, even going forward to this day. he would always say to me, well, why settle for this when you can get this? And that's kind of stuck with me. He, along with my parents, instilled a good work ethic, and so I often look back fondly on that. And so while those years were great, to be honest, what has been the most satisfying for me with Old Town Athletics has been since 2012, when that summer, Scott Gordon called me and said, hey, we're going to be starting up an Athletic Hall of Fame, and we'd like to have you be on the committee. It took me a little less than a second to say yes, because it's something that I had always thought about. Again, not something a lot of schools around the state have been doing, but when you look at the history of Old Town Athletics, the coaches, the student athletes that have come from here, it's as impressive as any school in the state. And when you look through the program at those individuals, you're like, whoa, that's saying something, because they've done a lot of great things. They were not only great athletes, but they were great students as well, much like all of our inductees today. And so to have Scott Gordon start that up, along with Harry Sanborn and the RSU 34 Foundation, to me was huge. And as Scott said at the beginning, one of the neat parts is seeing students and families come back into the school, place where they may not have been since they graduated. And see them walking down the halls and looking at the class pictures and showing their kids, hey, look, there's mom or there's dad. And the kids like, really? Because sometimes we change a little bit over the years. And so those connections have really been neat to see through the years, and to be able to recognize all of them on the Hall of Fame board that we have down by the gym, and to bring them back and recognize them and tell everybody how special they are to us has been really the most satisfying thing for me in Old Town Athletics since 2012. So I thank all of those from when I was here as a student, and all of those that are still doing it now, because this is something that, frankly, doesn't happen unless you have administration who wants to make it happen and then continues to work to make it happen. And certainly Scott has done that. David Walker, the past superintendent, was always enthusiastic about us doing it. And so I thank them all for that, and for reaching out and giving me an opportunity to be part of it, because it really truly has been very satisfying. So I thank them all, including our selection committee, who, when they brought my name up this summer, I'm like, there's way too many people that could be going, but I only get one vote, and I got outvoted, Rod, and others. So thank you very much. It's an honor to have my name up there with all of them, for sure. So thank you all. Our next inductee, if you follow Old Town Athletics at all, you can't help but know the name Tia Jackson. Because every time there was an article in the newspaper, or every time there was a story on the news following track meet, it always started with Tia Jackson leads Old Town, Tia Jackson breaks a record, Tia Jackson and Old Town. She was every meet, everything she did. She excelled at and was phenomenal at it. As some of these stats will certainly validate, in outdoor track, Tia was the high jump state champion as a junior, in the process set a school record of 5 feet 4 inches. She was 4-time outdoor track all-state selection, 4-time all PVC in multiple events. She was a multiple-time team most outstanding and most valuable performer, a 3-time qualifier for the New England Championships. She remains the outdoor school record holder in the 200 meter, the 4x400 meter relay, and the high jump. That's just outdoor. Indoor track, 2-time state champion in the high jump, 4-time all-state selection, all PVC 4 times in multiple events. She qualified 4 times for the Indoor New England Championships, and to this day, still holds 6 school records. The 200 meter, the 300 meter, the 400 meter, the 4x200 meter relay, and the high jump, and the pentathlon. 6 of them that she still holds to this day. And she also played field hockey, and following graduation, continued her career with indoor and outdoor track at the University of Maine. And so it is an honor to welcome the newest member of the Old Town Hall of Fame, Tia Jackson Norton.
I didn't write a speech, but I have it in here. That actually sounded like a lot when you were going through it, and it's not really something that seemed so big at the time. Louder. Am I close? Can you guys hear me?
Yes.
Yeah. I just want to thank the person who nominated me and the selection committee. Obviously, my family who drove me to so many practices, like swimming practices at 6 in the morning just for like strength training before school, and practices after school, and practices on the weekends, and our 8-hour track meets. Sorry. That were every single weekend. Mr. Gordon, obviously, thank you so much. And then my biggest thank you to Rod and Andy. Even though they were my coaches in high school, I ran for Rod and Andy since I was 8 years old. You can come here. You can come here. Sorry. Okay. One year, so if you know me, I am a pretty anxious person, so you could tell anytime I was competing, my shoulders are, they're way up in my ears. And Rod and Andy are always just you're naturally athletic, it's all in here, you just have to believe in yourself, and so much I doubted that. And one year it was the meet before PVCs, and I was running a race, and I fell, and I hurt my hip. I could barely walk, and I ended up sitting out PVCs that year, and it later turned into I ended up having to have hip surgery, and I had a labral tear, and I sat out for a week or so, and then it was the state meet, and obviously I needed to compete in the state meet, and I had this big brace around my hip. I could barely walk, and I ended up winning states. And the only reason that I was able to do that was because both Rod and Andy were there, and they were just you deserve this, you can do this, it's all in your head, you just need to be confident. And I have a degree in mechanical engineering right now. I just graduated with my MBA, and all I want to do is go and coach track and be just how Rod and Andy were, and just make people believe in themselves the way that my coaches were able to make me feel about myself. Thank you guys so much, and obviously I appreciate this more than anything.
And that right there is another neat reason that we do the Hall of Fame, and to hear things like that and the impact that student athletes receive from coaching, teachers. Sometimes we get stuck in these budget battles, and we sometimes talk, well, maybe we can't do this sport, can't do that sport, and the argument is always, these are life lessons that you learn by competing. That's a perfect example right there, the impact that is made on our student athletes. Our next inductee is Adam Richardson. He was a 3-sport athlete here at Old Town High School, played soccer, basketball, and baseball. In soccer, he was captain of the Old Town Coyotes. He was named PVC Class B First Team, named the Class B All-Star Team, and was the recipient of a Coach's Award. He was also captain of the baseball team, which he led to the Eastern Maine Championship game before being named an Eastern Maine Class B All-Star Team member. And I can still remember watching him, Adam Richardson, way up here, pitching with those long legs and arms. It seemed like by the time he let go of the ball when he was pitching, it was halfway to the plate. Not something I'd want to be staring at in the batter's box. In basketball, he led Old Town to the 2014 Eastern Maine Championship, and then a week later, the state championship gold ball, which we have on display here today. Following his career at Old Town, he went on to Maine Maritime Academy, where he remains to this day 15th on the all-time school scoring list, 13th all-time in rebounds, 7th in assists. He was named the North Atlantic Conference Player of the Week many times, and then in his senior year was named the North Atlantic Conference Player of the Year. Adam's not able to be with us here today, but he did send along a message that he's asked us to read. Adam says, I want to say thank you to Old Town High School and the nomination committee for voting me into the Hall of Fame. I wish I could have attended today. My participation in sports at Old Town are some of the fondest memories. I not only learned to be a better athlete, but also learned many life lessons from my coaches, including Coach McDorman, Coach Grafflin, and Coach Goody. I also had many wonderful teachers who helped me succeed. My experience allowed me to continue my education in athletics at the next level at Maine Maritime Academy. Again, thank you for this honor. It is very much appreciated. Adam can't, as I said, be here today. However, his parents, Mary and Scott Richardson, are here to accept his Hall of Fame plaque today. We'll welcome them up. I was texting with Adam yesterday. He works for a power company and is in Kansas as we speak, erecting windmill farm. So he did express that he was sad that he couldn't be here, but was there in Kansas, putting that great education to work. Our next inductee is Kate Laverdier Bartimus. Kids already going, I love it. Kate was also a multiple sport athlete here at Old Town High School, competing in cross country, swimming, and outdoor track. In cross country, Kate was the PVC and a regional champion and a state runner-up. She was a two-time most outstanding performer, team most outstanding performer, a four-time PVC all-conference selection, a three-time all-state selection, three-time New England qualifier, and named All New England her senior year. In outdoor track, multiple-time team most outstanding and most valuable performer, PVC all-conference 3 times, and 2-time all-state selection. And she still is part of the school record-holding 4x800 meter relay team. Not bad, 20 years later. That thing's still holding strong. She, after leaving Old Town, went on to compete cross-country and track at the University of Maine. And because she can't get enough of it, still competes today in triathlons, Ironman and CrossFit competitions, the Boston Marathon, and in her spare time, leaping over buildings with a single bound or something like that. It is an honor today to welcome Kate Laverdier Bartimus to the Old Town Athletic Hall of Fame.
To be back in Old Town, Maine today. We flew in yesterday with my daughter Reese from Charlotte, North Carolina. Been gone many years now, so it's always good to come back. Haven't been back in the winter time in a long time, so it's good to see some snow. I'm glad it cooperated this weekend. Anyway, it's an honor and privilege to be here to be representing and being inducted into the Old Town High School Athletic Hall of Fame, and I want to thank you to the committee, and I'm assuming Rod, you nominated me. I don't know for sure, but he'd be the guy to do it. So thank you very much for having me. Throughout my high school career at Old Town, a number of people who had a positive influence on me, both athletically and professionally, and helped mold me into the person I am today. Being surrounded by happy, positive, encouraging people, but the teachers, the staff, the coaches, have all helped me become just that. I'll never forget a very pregnant Mrs. Kalina, my Spanish teacher, sprinting down the hall and racing me to class. She won that day, and she will remind me every single time I see her that she beat me and because of that, school was fun and I enjoyed it. I started swimming here at the Old Town High School pool by the age of 5. I rocked a bowl cut for many years because it was too hard to tame with the chlorine. I grew out my leg hair for many years because that's what swimmers do. We shave for states, that's about it. And then I always smelled of chlorine. But it was really cool growing up here, and I think I saw the state B championship come to Old Town for 14 years, I think. I was a swimmer for at least 13, and I think every single year, either the men's team or the women's team both came home with a state championship of some sort. So I was very blessed to grow up in a great swimming community and to be a part of our swim team was really small when I was here, but we had great coaches. We had Doug Springer. He was a really big, I swam with his daughter, but he was really big and helped in the Canoe City Swim Club. I'm forgetting another name, but Doug Springer was my high school coach. Tim LaCrone and Chris McGinnis, I'd like to thank. But we still pulled off having a small team, but we still pulled off state runners-up for those 4 years. I used to think I was a swimmer, and that was until I met the legendary Coach Rod White. I met him in middle school, but he didn't coach me until high school, and knowing that I'd be running for him and representing Old Town High School one day, I always listened to his encouragement at races. Thank you, Rod, for making the miles fun. One of my favorite memories, and it's funny because the new generation of people will never know what it is to have a payphone or to have little black containers that hold your film for film cameras, but Rod used to break us up into teams of 3 or 4 people. Do you remember this? You'd give us quarters, and he would send us off running across town. He would Milford Mobile, the Irving gas station near where the train redemption center is, up to Governor's Restaurant, and you'd have to call. You'd give us a quarter, put the quarter in the payphone, you dial the number, and he was probably the first person in the world to have a car phone. I think you had a cell phone or a car phone. I don't know how we did it. But we called his number, and we had to read off the payphone number, so he knew that we were actually at that position. And it wasn't, and everybody that was in our group had to say, hey, this is Kate, hey, this is Nick, hey, this is so-and-so. So you had to be running with your team. So I think that day we probably had at least 8 miles and from Milford to Governor's to back. But anyway, Rod made it fun, so thank you. I lost my place now. But yeah, thank you for making it fun. You made me confident in myself, and you always built us up. You never let us see any disappointment, and I appreciate that. I'll never forget another morning. I was a senior. I was always a top 10, top 5 runner until my senior year. I mean, I'd win a couple races here and there, but I remember the morning of our home sectional meet. I mean, everybody remembers that meet because they play Chariots of Fire or the last. Do you still do that? Yeah, I love it. There's nothing like trying to sprint to the finish and you just want to run in slow motion. But anyway, that morning, it's my senior year. I'm wanting to do my best. I remember I'm in the shower, like getting ready for the meet, and I'm like, why not me? And we had a really stacked PBC conference team. Oriana Farley from Hamden, Heather Giovanelli from Brewer. I mean, Hillary Green was on my team. But we had a really good stacked conference team. Miranda Sweck from Bangor, I think. Anyway, conference. My goal for that day and that morning at this home meet, I was going to run on the top girls' heels until I died. And if I died, great. At least I tried to keep up with them. But that day, I ended up in 3rd place. The next meet was at Hamden. I think it was a regular season meet, but I knocked off Heather Giovanelli and came in 2nd between Oriana Farley. The next meet was the Penobscot Valley Conference Championship, where I won, and I set a course record. I won regionals, and I couldn't have done that without my coaches believing in me, my parents supporting me, my parents hollering at me, so thank you for that. My very last race at Old Town was anchoring the 4x400 meter relay at the state meet, which was held at the University of Maine. It was a major honor and privilege to be running there. I would be running for the University of Maine the following year. So my future coach, Mark Leck, was there. Rod was there. My parents were there. It's the very last race of any kind of meet, any kind of track meet. So I'm sure, Tia, you know how that is. You're always the last one to show up to prom, too, because we're always getting the sunburns and showing up late for that. But anyway, we ended up winning that race, and it was a great way to end my high school career. So anyway, Rod, I want to thank you for your encouragement, your challenging workouts, making all those miles fun, and always smiling. I hope to someday be the half coach that you are. Lastly, I'd like to thank my family, my mom and my dad, for driving me back and forth over the years. And you always made it to all my meets and always supported me. And even though I didn't do the most exciting sports, we love football. We love football in my house. But swimming and running is hot, and there's hours of just downtime in between. But you guys still showed up, and you still hollered at me like you were watching the Buffalo Bills or the Patriots score a touchdown. Megan, thank you so much for being here, and I know my brother couldn't make it, but he's probably on his way. I just want to thank you for your love and support over the years. And I love you guys. Reese, my almost 10-year-old tomorrow, thank you for joining me on this trip. I know that someday I will be coaching you. She ran her first 5K this year and actually was the second female overall finisher, and she's in 4th grade. So yes, good job, Reese. I wish she could run here in Old Town, Maine, but maybe I can tell her to go to college up here. Reese, I'm your #1 fan, and I know that someday I'll be attending your Athletic Hall of Fame as well. My #1 fan couldn't make it today. My husband, John, he's home with our other 4 kids. Natalie is 12, Reese is almost 10 tomorrow, Ross is 7, Alexandra is 5, and Maximus is 3. He didn't get to see any of my high school accomplishments here at Old Town, but he's been cheering me on for years while I competed in triathlons. He even became an Iron fan for standing around for my parents also, my sister, for 13 hours. I think I ran in 11 hours and 3 minutes, but the hours. He became an Iron fan the day I became an Iron Man. Along with my mom and dad and my sister Megan, my 2 older girls were actually at the finish line in the 2013 Boston Marathon, waiting for me to cross when the bombs went off. I'm thankful for God watching over them that day and all of us. It's been 22 years since I last roamed these halls, swam in the pool, and ran these trails. It is the memories of how people make you feel that you remember, and it is the people of Old Town High School that I will cherish forever. Thank you.
Thank you, Kate. And Kate was telling us, came up from North Carolina yesterday, and Reese seeing snow for what, the 3rd time maybe? Probably. 3rd time? And what, you said she wanted to do a face plant in it,
She
right?
did, and I told her, you need a little more snow.
Yeah. We need a softer landing. Before we get to the next part of our ceremony today, I do want to give some thank yous. Principal Scott Gordon for helping to keep this going and all that he does in the planning and pulling this all together. Athletic Administrator Jeremy Bousquet for helping as well. Stephanie Sally from the kitchen here at the high school for putting the refreshments together today. And Keith Jennings from the custodian crew for getting us set up yesterday. Also to coaches Rod White and Dave Plock, who are, when it comes to their respective sports, they're the go-to. And so when I need information on swimmers and runners, like, okay guys, I need help. And then they send me all this information because they have it all for so many years. So I thank them for that as well. At this time, we are going to take a little walk down memory lane here with a little video presentation of our inductees that we have welcomed to the Hall of Fame today.
Years from now, hear the echo of our cheer. Because we spend our lives making memories, they will know that we talking pages from a magazine. Been looking for the answer ever since we were 17. You know the truth can be a weapon to fight this world of ill intentions. A new answer to the same question. How many times will you learn the same lesson? You think they got it all wrong? Well, you just gotta hold on. And on and on and on. 'Cause we're gonna be legends. Gonna get their attention. What we're doing here ain't just scary. It's about to be legendary. Yeah, we're gonna be legends. Gonna teach them all a lesson. Got this feeling in our souls we carry. It's about to be legendary. This is what we came for, and we couldn't want it anymore. Could never turn back now. Got to leave it all on the floor. Been dreaming of the payoff through the struggles and the trade-offs. Right into thin nail on the way up. Tell them the truth, but they think it's just made up. And I think they got it all wrong. We just gotta hold on. And on and on and on. 'Cause we're gonna be legends. Gonna get their attention. What we're doing here ain't just scary. It's about to be legendary. Yeah, we're gonna be legends. Gonna teach them all a lesson. Got this feeling in our souls we carry. It's about to be legendary. Eventually they're gonna know who's right.
I'll be the last one standing, 2 hands in the air, I'm a champion. You'll be looking up at me when it's over. I live for the battle, I'm a soldier. Yeah, I'm a fighter like Rocky. Put your flag on your back like Ali. Yeah, I'm the greatest, I'm stronger. Bet my dues, can't lose, I'ma own ya. Hey, I've been working my whole life, and now it's do or die. I am invincible, unbreakable, unstoppable, unshakable. They knock me down, I get up again. I am the champion. You don't know my name, you can't hurt me now. I can't feel the pain. I was made for this, yeah, I was born to win. I am the champion. When they write my story, they're gonna say that I did it for the glory. But don't think that I did it for the fame, yeah. I did it for the love of the game, yeah. And this is my chance I'm taking. All them old records I'm breaking. All you people watching on the TV, you go ahead and put your bets on me. Hey, I've been waiting my whole life to see my name in lights. I am invincible, unbreakable, unstoppable, unshakable. They knock me down, I get up again. I am the champion. You don't know my name, you can't hurt me now. I can't feel the pain. I was made for this, yeah, I was born to win. I am the
Born champion. The C is for the courage I possess through the drama. H is for the hurt, but it's all for the honor. A is for my attitude, working through the patience. Money comes and goes, the M is for motivation. Gotta stay consistent, the P is to persevere. The I is for integrity, innovative career. The O is optimistic, open and never shut. And the N is necessary, cause I'm never giving up. See, they ask me how I did it, I just did it from the heart. Crushing the competition, been doing it from the start. They say that every champion is all about his principles. Carry.
I am invincible, unbreakable,
See what I mean by sometimes we change a little bit as the years go on. And so that is going to bring a conclusion to our ceremony, at least this part of it. We are also doing, the basketball teams are competing today against Holton, and so our inductees will be honored there as well today in between the girls varsity game and the boys JV game. So for anyone who would like to go and attend that as well, it will happen at about 3-ish, depending on when that second game gets done. And it'll be a chance to honor our inductees today in front of the fans that are here for those basketball games as well. In the meantime, there's still more refreshments in the back of the room, and an opportunity for anyone who wants to get some photos taken, feel free to do that as well. But once again, thanks for being here today, and one more round of applause for our 2022 Carleton inductees.